Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee of the Board of Education. Got some people in our audience tonight that we're excited to hear from. Mary Jo, has the meeting been posted?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any citizens that would like to address the board tonight? Please come forward.
We decided to sit in the back row so we could heckle you.
Do you want to introduce yourself, or should I introduce you? Go
I can
ahead,
do it.
introduce yourself.
My name is Bill Walsh. I'm the Executive Director of the Montessori School of Waukesha, and I wanted to take just a brief time, I think it's 3 minutes, so I'll talk fast, to just, on behalf of the 4K partners, I wanted to thank the district for the opportunity to continue serving 4-year-olds. I don't know if you know this or not, but we are completing our 6th year as a 4K community partner, going into our 7th year, so we're really looking forward to it. It's been a wonderful collaboration, certainly between all the partners, many of whom considered ourselves to be competitors for many, many years. So it's been, to use an 80s term, very synergistic in terms of bringing all of our backgrounds and perspectives to bear on 4K and serving the district. So certainly it's been a great opportunity to continue providing developmentally appropriate practices to 4-year-olds in the district. Certainly looking at the opportunity to continue this relationship for many, many years to come. So certainly from the standpoint of, also wanted to thank our fearless leader, Debbie Wells, in the back row there. She certainly has been instrumental at making sure that the program is always high quality, certainly making sure that we have open lines of communication between one another as community partners. It's been highly, highly beneficial. And again, I just wanted to say on behalf of the partners, and certainly in your role as whatever fractional share of the board, thank you, truly.
Thank you.
And I'm Tim Nolan, and I'm Director of the Head Start Program and Child and Family Centers here in the district, and have been doing that for 46 and a half years. So I'm almost through my probationary phase as an employee. And I, too, came to celebrate because I think one of the sources of pride for the school district of Waukesha is that 8 years ago, there wasn't a 4K.
That's right.
And together, we forged this thing. I mean, in the first year, the partners were the only direct service portion of this. And we have come together incredibly well. And as Bill has mentioned, Debbie Wells deserves a whole lot of credit for that. I mean, she worked really closely with us and has driven standards up every single year. So there were new and interesting things that we added to this process. One of the things that I want to just come back and reemphasize because of my Head Start role, and we're actually in this in both of our organizations, Child and Family Centers and National Centers, the Head Start program are in the partnership. But in Head Start, what we've been able to do is we have 105 4-year-olds in Head Start who have an alternate half day in Head Start and 4K. So morning in 4K, afternoon in Head Start, or Head Start in the morning and 4K in the afternoon, which is incredibly beneficial. I mean, essentially to get into Head Start, you really have to qualify as kind of the least likely to succeed. You know, there's economic screens, but then there's also a competition to see if you're how many issues your family is facing. So by being able to do both programs, what we're able to do is pretty much double the intervention rate. And Head Start is a whole lot more than education. It's an intervention program across all dimensions. And I would propose to you 4K done well is education on steroids, because we're dealing with some of the first entry into education for kids and their parents. And a lot of what we try to do in 4K as well as Head Start is to best prepare parents to be a partner in the education of their child, to not exempt them from the process. So, and I just want to thank you, and I would hope that the board members who were here and helped to create 4K, and those who came along afterwards can share equally in the pride in a program that I think it's one of the largest with community partners, and I would claim that it's certainly one of the most successful. So thank you for that.
Great. Anyone have any questions?
I just want to-
Okay, Dr. Langill.
Oh, hi. Well, I thank you both for coming, and it's great to hear the feedback, and I think we're all very excited about this and the success, as you say. So it's really good to hear from the direct providers, and since she's in the room and we don't get to say thank you enough, and since we're losing her, thank you, Debbie. Wonderful, wonderful work. Thank you.
I would just like to ask a question. Bill, you mentioned developmentally appropriate practice. How does that look at Montessori? Could you very quickly
Sure.
tell me that?
Pretty much a morning in the life of a 4-year-old would be one of the fundamental tenets of Montessori philosophy is a 3-hour uninterrupted work cycle. During the course of that work cycle, there's elements of choice in various activities in the order in which the child would pursue them. And if you have a child who needs more time, let's say reading, math, whatever it is, they spend as much time as they need under the guidance of the teacher until they achieve a level of mastery before they are required to move on to the next level. If they need less time in another skill set, they just spend simply less time. Does
So
that-
so your instructional practices sound like it's pretty much depends on the student.
Very much so. It's very individualized in the approach,
Okay,
most definitely.
thank you.
Certainly.
I just want to tell you how much I appreciate, our association with both of you. I visited both of your sites, and it excites me to see the developmentally appropriate things that you're doing with young children in our community. You're to be complimented highly for what you do for kids, and please keep it up and be a model for, all 4-year-old programs in Waukesha County and the greater Milwaukee area, as we need good role models for kids. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move around the agenda a little bit tonight, and I hope that you, the board members, will be okay with this. Since we have a group of people here tonight for our last item, which is a discussion item, the School District of Waukesha Early Learning Story from Past to Future. So since they're all here, I thought maybe we should have them come up first, because we have other business to take care of, and let's go into that discussion item first. So please come forward.
Could we quick approve the minutes?
I will. Okay, before we proceed into this, could we please have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second, please? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 5-0, Mary Jo. Okay. Mr. Antheline, Bob Antheline, is going to lead us in the discussion. Bob, thank you so much for bringing these people together on a very busy part of the year. Would you introduce the people to the board, please?
Absolutely. I'll let them introduce themselves and
Okay.
where they're from. So.
Okay.
I'm Laura Faust, the Special Ed Coordinator, EC through 5th grade.
Hello, I'm Liza Hoyer, currently effectiveness coach at Lowell. Before this position, I was a kindergarten teacher at Hatfield.
Oh, okay.
Hello, my name is Omar Macis, and I'm delighted to be back here. I'm currently teaching dual language kindergarten two-way at Blair Elementary School.
Okay. Welcome to each one of you. Thank you.
I will also be playing the part of Debbie Hembrook this evening,
Okay.
as we have some quotes from her as well. She's not able to attend. We're actually just going to start. This is a very brief snapshot of early learning in Waukesha. We have a lot within our school system and a lot outside of our school system. And so this is just about a 90-second visual, small representation of what takes place in the school district of Waukesha. Should be one more. Yeah.
Thank you. Put a lot of work into that, did you, Bob?
again, just a really brief snapshot of kind of what maybe across the board from various sites within the district. Again, not all, and not all the community partners as well. So we were sort of asked to do a little bit of the past, current, future pieces. So you can go to the next one. As we introduced ourselves earlier as well. Go to the next one. Wisconsin early childhood. I'm not going to read these pieces, but there's frameworks that our state uses and that are also put out by national organizations. The DPI goal, I just underlined in there some of the pieces I thought that were things that we'd want to see across our buildings, such as joyful lifelong learners, active contributors to healthy communities, productive members of society, and that includes parents, professionals in the public and private sector, in which all families are supported in their roles. And while it's an early childhood goal, you could probably apply that goal to almost any type of learning in any grade level. The Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards as well, really they are setting a foundation for success in school and later in life for all children. They are meant to be designed by a developmentally appropriate use of curriculum and assessment practices that support and promote children's learning and development. Just again, some of the goals of early childhood as well as the National Association for the Education of Young Children to raise the quality of education for all children from birth through age 8. So the brief on kindergarten and 4K in the state, 1800, schooling was started. For kindergarten started in 1850, according to the DPI,
1800?
in the state of Wisconsin. Well, the state of Wisconsin.
Here then, but
The state of Wisconsin was not technically a state, but Wisconsin's schooling system started in 1800.
oh well, I don't think so, but it doesn't matter. Never mind.
Well, in 1841, there were some public funds committed. The first public kindergarten was in Manitowoc that was serving 4 and 5-year-olds. And then a little after that, legislature permits 4K and 5K. School Readiness Committee in 1990 recommended full day 5K and half day 4K. Lacrosse, again, per DPI, states that we're one of the first pioneers for the community approach for 4K. And is very similar to many of our districts around here now, as well as it's grown pretty large in Waukesha. And then in 2012, the Read to Lead Task Force requires PALS, just sort of an evolution of learning throughout the years in the state. And if anybody wants to join me on any of these as well, some of the past, you want to?
No, go ahead.
Half-day kindergarten, the kindergarten readiness program, which was a referral only, a Young 5 program. Many children came to kindergarten without preschool or prior schooling experience. There was a significant social emotional component. Kids were involved in the assessment process before kindergarten started. There was a time where kids would come in prior to school, and many of the checks and balances were done at that stage, as well as continuum stage cards for literacy, probably more of a basal type approach to the development for students. After that, or now most recently though too, the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. And these are just some of the partnerships that have helped develop that, along with a consortium of teachers, professors, and educational leaders. And on the next slide, this is just sort of the framework that is used for early childhood. The one that's highlighted is the curiosity, engagement, persistence, creativity, imagination, diversity, and learning. Just seems to fit a topic that has come up quite often within our system is around the approaches we take to learning. Within that, though, it also identifies that all of those pieces are to promote the lifelong learner and engage students in those activities.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the full day kindergarten and how it looks. We followed the workshop model and the readers and writers workshop, and we tried to integrate the social studies and science in the readers workshop. At the same time, we are using FOSS, which is the program that all our sites is based on, and we call it the Next Generation Science because it's hands-on activities and just taking it to the next level. If you come to my classroom, you will see that I have like a greenhouse, and I have like around 300 plants that the students are planting for different ideas. We're going to donate tomato plants, green peppers to the community garden, which is located right in front of the main entrance of the Waukesha Memorial Hospital. And so we're trying to connect science, math, measuring the plants, counting leaves, taking pictures and using technology to gather evidence and just take it to the community. And the students are understanding that they are part of the community, and whatever we do in the classroom, it gets reflected in the community. And for 4K,
For 4K, they're half-day programs right now, and we do have 31 classrooms this year with 4K students, which is about, give or take, 730 students. And we do use the scaffolding early literacy, which involves the students in their literacy is based around their play. So they kind of develop a plan for how they're going to play, and that builds over the school year. We try to maintain very play-based structure in 4K and building that community and school connection with our community partners. We do have 16 sites that we do work jointly with. And of course, we do the play-based and the themes of each lesson unit that the kids work on.
When you said 31 classrooms and 16 sites, 31 classrooms within our schools and then plus 16 sites, or all together?
All told, all together. Here are the sites
Oh.
of all the places that we have partnerships with that for community. And the Banting dual language, two-way, and Banting English is for next year.
So as Laura stated, in the future, we have increased opportunities for our students. The dual language two-way program and the other program at Banting will be a full day, which offers more learning opportunities for students. We will continue programs at the Welk, Banting, Bethesda, Rose Glen, Summit View, and 12 community sites. Moving forward, we will continue to frame early childhood learning through a continuum, but we hope to better connect 4K and 5K through more of a meshed learning continuum all the way through their early learning. We see an opportunity for increased collaboration. This increased collaboration includes 4K with other 4K teachers in the community sites, as well as more opportunities for 4K and 5K teachers to collaborate. We also see an opportunity for increased intentional math opportunities for play experiences. As with any program, we continue to revisit the practices that are in place and refine to better meet the needs of our students.
Just to add to that too, one of our elementary not I would say challenge, but opportunities is to continue to find ways people can collaborate across grade levels. So we have some sites that have 2 teachers in second grade or in kindergarten, and they have each other, which is great, and they have a vertical alignment, but to try to find opportunities to collaborate with peers, whether that's through technology or after school times or through leadership opportunities, but to make sure there's an opportunity for those people to engage with each other, to continue to talk about practice and expectations and environments and new ideas and pieces like that as well too.
Bob, can I?
Yes.
Go ahead.
As long as this is up here, I just wanted to ask, the first thing, increased opportunities for students, sounds great. I like the phrase, I don't know what it means.
Yeah, and I think some of that hopefully will come through a little bit later. Just we did some surveys with staff.
Okay.
But a lot of it right now is an increase through and asking for an increase of technology for kids at the lower levels.
Okay.
That typically seems to come from 4K. Some of our 4K teachers.
So really, you're saying increased opportunities to learn through technology?
Through technology, but additionally too, as we maybe have some of the sites grow into our elementary schools, there's opportunities for students to engage within their buildings at a different level as well too. And then continually to work with the partner sites. So like at Summit View, some of the 4K kids have interactions with their peers in Summit View, for example. So that's something that's a little bit different this year, or at Banting, and continuing to grow some of our other offerings like a dual language program and stuff too.
And I had one other question. what is unintentional math versus intentional math?
Unintentional math,
Yeah,
the wordsmith here.
I don't know what that means.
Do you want to fill that one, Liza, or do you want
Sure.
me to?
The intentional math through play experiences just means that moving into the future and in speaking with Debbie Wells about what's currently in place for professional development, that there's an opportunity for some focus on math and how we can build resources and collaboration specifically around early learning mathematics, and then infuse that into our play even better than we're currently doing.
That's just an interesting use of that word. I mean, intentional, it sounds great, but I just wondered what the opposite was.
If I could take you back to, and then, I mean, like some of the pictures that were shared were kids interacting in play settings where they're working on multiple things. When we
Right.
think of play, the social emotional aspects.
Okay.
But that through that, they were designing math experiences as well too. So it's
Oh.
kind of maybe partnering the math and the playful experiences might
Okay.
be a better language.
All right, thank you.
So we do provide services to our students that have special needs, and we do start services for children as they're turning 3. We do have students transition to us from the Birth to 3 program in Waukesha County. There's a couple different ways that we service our kids who are 3. We have teachers and speech pathologists and related services that go out into the community sites and work with kids as community partners. We don't just go to only the community sites that we have partnered with. We may go to other preschools as well. And those teachers go in and intentionally working on areas where those kids may be showing deficits. We also have a program, we have a couple different ways that we help the kids at 3-year-old in the Waukesha Early Learning Center. We have a multi-age classroom where we kind of integrated the 3 and 4-year-olds. Our older 3-year-olds join that class for a couple days a week, and again, the special ed teachers and assistants and related services and speech and language push in to help make that meaningful for those students. We also have a self-contained 3-year-old program where our students who are younger or need a little bit more intensive directions come for 2 or 3 half days per week to work on their targeted skills that are addressed through their IEP. And then the next slide is how special ed services 4-year-olds is, again, we have teachers, speech paths, and related service, OT, PT, that will go out into the community and provide intentional instruction to the kids in the community in all the sites. But we also have the Early Learning Center where if a student needs a little bit more, we would do the multi-age classroom for our 4-year-olds. And again, the teachers can push in. We try to do very little pull-out, but if we need to do pull-out, we will do that. Also at the Early Learning Center, we have dual language. And that program addresses our students that are Spanish-speaking for 3 and 4-year-olds. So that classroom kind of serves both purposes for those kids.
So I'll give you this later because there's a lot in here. We did send a survey out to kindergarten and 4K teachers. And basically the survey started with what are things that make it great to be an early childhood teacher in the district of Waukesha? What are some opportunities that we might have to overcome? And then what would be a quick win that would make it a better spot for you, maybe say if it was something we could do by the fall. And we're going to kind of work in reverse order here and just kind of start with the opportunities. These are pretty much exactly as they came to us. Some of them I pushed together to get kind of some of the comments in there. But as you can see, the combination or the discussion around play activities and understanding of administration and the district to understand early childhood development, time to collaborate with 4K and 5K peers, continued improvement on the report card, keeping decisions made in 4K consistent, changing environments is hard. There's comments about transportation for 4K, technology for 4K. and that professionalism that I believe has been addressed in many ways this year or in the last couple of years about the teachers being professionals. I did want to recognize, there are people that have, this is their reality, and we have to be able to support them and help them navigate through any concerns that they have. Does anybody have any questions you want to ask about this one, or do you want me to go through all three and then come back to them? Okay. Go ahead.
Actually, I want to ask one question. This is just teachers, just the 4K teachers?
4K, 5K.
And 5K, okay. And was this all the questions that were asked?
Is this all the opportunities?
All the data that came back on it, so how many questions are here?
Well, no, this was when they were asked what is an opportunity for our system to get better in. These were the suggestions and the things that came up. Some of these are condensed because I tried to fit it onto one page, but these pretty much hold true to the descriptions, minus any names
Right,
that were
exactly.
used.
Okay, so
Look at that, too.
the survey was just one blanket question?
Yep.
There were three questions. What are opportunities that we need to overcome?
Yep.
What makes it good to be an educator in the district? And then what would be something we could do as a quick win to make it a better spot by September?
This is not edited,
Not really, no.
there wasn't anything overly negative that came back that is not on this list. Because as Ellen points out in some of our meetings, a lot of times we just get the polished version.
No, I'd be happy to give you the access. It's easy to
I know,
share,
just
but
want-
this is pretty true to the, because I knew it'd be up here, so I didn't want anybody questioning my
No,
my
I'm just
validity. But
wondering,
yeah,
you know.
it's pretty accurate.
Okay.
On the next slide were some quick wins for early childhood in the district. Guaranteeing, again, exploration playtime in all 4K, 5K. A practical and parent-friendly reporting system. Books, which actually that person did, there was an option to have a follow-up, so that would be someone I'll follow up with on, because I know that the district has been very supportive of making sure people have resources, literacy, math, wherever it may be. I did not, nor did Liza, put the word intentional, but they did. Intentional instruction around social emotional development. There were things mentioned in there, like there were some programs that were suggested, and I'm drawing a total blank on what there was a long list that some people had given. Handwriting, which has come up in conversations across the board as well. Teaching assistance, that's better communication with community partners. Parent education opportunities, which I know we have many of, but maybe we're not navigating the avenue for all parents to be understanding of that. More access to technology, that was listed as 4K primarily. And then again, kindergarten assessments reduced, which we did talk about at a couple previous board meetings, and just trying to, again, go through what we have to do versus what we need to do on assessments. On the next two pages, I try to stay positive, so there's two positive pages. But I think you'll also see in some of the comments, some of it is, maybe site dependent, but a lot of people do, there's a lot of really good things going on with our early childhood, and at least I was happy to see as many comments about being professionals and being able to make decisions based on the needs of our students. There were comments about the one-to-one technology and the access to those pieces for kids. There were the comments just about how teaching at this age. One of my favorite ones is the second from the bottom that said, I feel that Waukesha values early childhood education by supporting community partners to serve the most needed children. And then also I feel that we embrace early childhood best practices by providing a play-based curriculum and use of authentic assessment tools. So again, some of them are contradictory, but people's perceptions, and that's something for us to kind of continue to work on. On the next piece too there, we are included and acknowledged for being a valuable part of the school. Current trends in education are researched and shared. Again, Waukesha is innovative and creative in many ways, which support teacher and student growth. I am learning from my teammates. So while there are plenty of things that we need to continue to come around and try to work through, there are also a lot of really positive things that have been developed over the years that we hope to continue to develop. Are there any thoughts or comments anybody would like to have about some of those questions that were up there? Go ahead.
I just have one observation, because of course it is right up my alley, the way I feel. I mean, I like the technology, but was there just one parent that said books?
One,
And how did you take that?
One-
The
one-
comment that said, where it was feedback and they said books.
This is teachers.
that was a teacher.
So that was a teacher who wanted, what, more use of
More,
books?
more books. They didn't, the person said they didn't feel like they had the resources, and so they needed more
Okay.
books. So,
For themselves or for the students?
for their classroom. I mean,
No, for the students?
yes, yes.
Do we have little mini libraries in all these classrooms? I
Most
thought
of
we
our
did.
sites do, so there was an option from the feedback for them to say, would you like to be contacted? So that was that's a person that
okay.
wants to be contacted, so I'll follow up to make sure that they have books. Kids need
Yeah,
books.
okay, thank you, okay.
Bob, is it true when we talk about books, that we're talking about the little paperback books that kids use for beginning reading? I'm sure that there's, library books available, but in the classroom, what I've seen are books that students read themselves when, as they go through the different levels and stages of reading. And I've noticed lots and lots of those books in bins, et cetera, and I'm sure the teachers set those bins up and they, move those books around in the student's bin. Is that correct?
That definitely, as well as high-interest books, series books, a lot of the popular ones that have been around for quite a while. So a wide range of beginning books, high-interest books, library books, of course, audio books, just a very literacy-rich environment, all types of varieties of books.
I'm wondering, it wasn't mentioned, and I'm just wondering, how often storytelling is part of K4 and K5. That's such an important component, and kids learn so much from, storytelling of books that are not in the classroom. I'm thinking of Caldecott books and Newberry books, et cetera. Could you, tell me about that?
Absolutely. In 4K, it is part of the scaffolded early literacy, and this year especially, kindergarten classrooms have, I would say, increased the amount of books being read aloud with the implementation of the language workshop. So there is a lot of opportunity daily for students to hear books being read aloud to them in 4K and 5K.
Every day?
To add? Oh, yeah, every
Well,
day.
going back to the-
Definitely, yep.
Going back to the intentional teaching, is that it's not only grabbing a book just for the whole idea of doing a read aloud, but it has to be intentional. The teacher has to know beforehand if I'm introducing a nonfiction books and how my students are going to identify that. And we do it in the dual language, through sentence frame where they need to read it, repeat it, talk it, because we have the philosophy of if you don't use it, if you don't say it, you cannot read it, you cannot write it. So it's the whole thing of introducing books. And I have one corner dedicated like Mr. Massis's favorite books.
Oh,
And
wow.
I have the author of the month. And I have fiction and nonfiction books available for my students. And every single week, believe it or not, I'm changing the Wi-Fi books, and they have in their bag, and each kid has, and those are level books. So they have different resources that they can choose from.
I just know that storytelling is an activity that children gain so much from and enjoy. And, I had many, many books. I still have about 700 books at home, and hopefully somebody will want them. But storybooks, and the kids loved story time every day and learned so much about the world and language development, et cetera. And it's a very, I think, important component of 4- and 5-year-old kindergarten learning is that storytelling. So I hope that does occur and doesn't get lost, in the busy day that they have. Bob, could we go back to the first slide that you showed about teachers making comments?
Sure. One forward.
Let's see. It was before special. There. There are some things that are pointed out there, and I think, that would tell me that we've got some work to do in making sure that that our kindergartens are equipped. And, one of the things I do is visit kindergartens, and I was at Lowell this year. And I do notice in going from school to school that the programs are not well equipped with things to play with. And I find I have a problem with that because children, like, I did see some things, you know, in that where you're talking about math. I did see some blocks and et cetera, but I think you need more than blocks and et cetera. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't see the housekeeping corner anymore, and even though, you know, it isn't the idea that kids learn to keep house, but it was the social emotional growth and the cooperation and the imagination and creativity they did in that particular area of a kindergarten classroom. I can remember the kids, you know, making that into a police station one day, and the next day it might have been a restaurant, et cetera, and that was just creative, and I think it's very, very important. And then finally, I have to say that I talk to a lot of kindergarten teachers, and some tell me they have no time for play, and that's very, very concerning to me. So I think that needs to be addressed. They'll say, well, I've got 90 minutes of reading a day. How am I supposed to fit that in? Well, I don't know that 90 minutes of reading is a non-negotiable anymore, and I think, you know, that needs to be made clear.
A couple of pieces.
Okay.
Between the end of last week and this week, I was in 10 of the elementary sites. And I would say that most of those classrooms had multiple ways to engage kids in playful activities. So I know in Omar's classroom, he's got plenty of learning centers, but there's also there's the connecting area between you and your other teacher where there are things that might be considered ways for kids to engage in different types of play. I was at Prairie, for example. You know, there is multiple areas set up there as well in their kindergarten classrooms. And so I think there are quite a few that do have, I think, engaging spots for kids to play.
But shouldn't it be all, Bob? Shouldn't it be all? I mean, you know, you've said here that our program is a play-based program, but if there's nothing to play with, I guess I
think
know.
it depends on the teacher you ask and what they believe. And I would also say, though, whether it's kindergarten or fifth grade or a high school classroom, you know, the goal is to have them all equipped the same, but sometimes, you know, resources look different, and taking time and having people understand the purpose and the uses of things too. But I would say, at least, I think more often than not, we have pretty good engaging activities for kids to play in intentional ways, and I said that on purpose, but but just in ways for kids to engage in social emotional. To the time piece, I did sit down with a couple people too, and I tried to break down. I said, if you have 90 minutes of literacy, and if you have 60 minutes of writing and math, if you break your day down that, and you have lunch, and you have recess, people still have, and you have science and social studies, there's still about an hour a day that isn't really defined per se,
Should be
where
that way,
people could, that's the professional spot and the understanding. And in talking with, and I don't want to speak for everybody, so please jump in, but in talking with some teachers too, and I have a good quote for you on the next slide, but we'll get to it in a minute.
Okay.
About play, but during reading, if you have a 90-minute block of reading, there are playful things that should be happening in that
Absolutely.
time. I don't know a teacher in the district, a principal, or anybody in central office or across the board that would say, I would expect a kindergartner and a 4K kid to sit there for 90 minutes with a bit of
Right.
books.
I would hope not.
Because I use the example of my own daughter, and if she reads for an hour, she's probably gotten a snack 5 times, gone to the bathroom twice, walked around the couch 7 times, but she's still engaged. And so I think, you know, it's making sure that people are able to interact with kids, and it's not that 90-minute time.
I hope not.
There are story sessions that take place. There's whole group instruction that takes place. There are partner and social activities that take place. There are all those pieces that take place within the academic time that are also considered, I think, play-type activities. And you guys live it every day, so.
I was just in a kindergarten classroom last week at Lowell. I am daily, but last week at Lowell, they were creating puppets to retell a story that they had heard read aloud. So that was happening during the 60 or 90 minutes of readers' workshop time, but a very appropriate and engaging activity that is, you know, nobody at central office would say that wasn't appropriate for a readers' workshop, because that is kindergarten students developing literacy skills in a hands-on engaging way. So you see those types of activities also happening during the academic blocks, in addition to discovery play.
Because I don't think I have to tell you this or even mention it, but, we have lots of kids that come to our schools from, homes that don't have a lot of playthings. Some kids come and they've never even colored with a crayon, and, I think that we need to provide those opportunities along with everything else that we do. Mr. Baumgart.
Yeah, I think that this is important that we have this, but I've been to many, many classrooms, and probably in the schools as much as anybody, and the board, and I see play going on. I absolutely see play going on. I see resources for play, so I'm a little bit concerned that you're not seeing that, Barbara. And I guess what I would suggest, to kind of put an end to this, is if there are specific classrooms that are not getting the play and specific teachers that are not getting enough playing done, we figure out who those specific cases are, rather than calling it a broad brush thing that's going on, because I really don't believe it is that broad. So what I would encourage you to do, or the teachers you're speaking to that aren't doing any playing, is let's get the word back to Bob so we can fix it.
Well, I just think it's pretty obvious what,
Well,
there's
that could have been two people. We don't know that.
Well, whatever, it's
So anyway,
it's a meaningful comment.
No, yeah, it is, and I'm not saying it isn't, but I think rather than broad brushing it, I think we need to get specific about it. Can we have other comments? No, I have another comment. Can
Karen?
we move on from, oh.
Karen?
Thank you, Barbara. The second one from the bottom, though, is almost the opposite of the others when it says developmentally appropriate practice seems to be getting lost and playtime and social experiences are losing the value. So it almost, to me, seems like that one is saying there's too much play.
I think that's saying there's not enough play.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Okay.
The play
Well,
is
I get the
development,
first
losing the-
developmentally appropriate practice, but then getting lost in playtime and social experiences, does that mean that it's just all a free-for-all?
Yeah, the way that I read that is developmentally appropriate practice is basically schoolwork. Seems to be getting lost. I mean, the play is getting lost in the schoolwork.
And the academics.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, schoolwork.
And all
That's
that,
the way I read it.
thank you.
Is that how you should read it, Bob? How? Yeah.
That's fine.
In the classrooms I have been to, I feel like I just want to sit down and play with them. I see all of these centers, and I'm trying to picture one that I've been in that doesn't have anything to play with, Barbara. And so it breaks my heart that if kids are going to school and that they don't have anything to play with. And
Well, there are children that don't have a lot of playthings in their homes.
I know that. I know. We have 187 kids that are homeless in our, so for them to be in a car or a shelter, to come to school and play is great, and I would love to have that. So I'm trying to picture some that don't have anything, and if it means just putting the word out, hey, we need some, a sensory table, or we need this, or if we need resources, then we can get those. I think it's just, yeah, finding out those little pockets of where the problem is.
Well, okay, and then I don't want to interrupt you. And I don't know as much as I wish I did about things like Montessori, but I think it's spilled over so much. But with both of my kids at Montessori and then coming to Randall, one of the things I loved in watching them was they thought they were playing. So, I mean, that gets back to that intentional, unintentional. They thought they were playing. I mean, they were just having a ball, but they were playing with shapes, and they were putting things together and doing all this stuff. And, putting like things on a map and, all kinds of stuff. And they would have said to me, which they did say to me when I'd pick them up in the afternoon, that they were just having so much fun playing, but so I think that there must be a fluidity in terms of how they define play and what objects they are using. And then sometimes whether it's intentional or unintentional, they're learning a lot, so I think that that's kind of where it's hard to sort of be rigid and just break it down into, now for 15 minutes you'll play, because I think a lot of times if they're having a ball doing something, they might say, I'm playing, but they're learning geometry and they don't necessarily know that. It may be unintentional, but I don't know.
And I think the comment that was made about collaboration, I think, Bob, you started something this year that, I think you should continue, and that were the grade level meetings. I think that was it didn't, take off really big time because people didn't understand, you know, the value of it, but I think that the word is out how valuable those meetings were, and I've been at several of them, and I think, you know, those 4K and 5K should probably come together more often to collaborate. I think that's a real valuable thing. Did you want to say something, Ryan?
Just real quick, oftentimes we find ourselves as a system, and whether this is 4 or 5K or whether it's all the way up to 12th grade, as following a set of either invisible rules or old rules or rules that we think are in place. And I think one of the messages we're trying to do tonight is to talk about, is to show that we're trying to engage in really thoughtful conversations about what makes up a quality 4K program, to send messages out there that these things are valued and recognized, whether it's play or discovery time, whether it's beginning reading strategies and skills. We've used terms in the past, unfortunately, that have said things like non-negotiable, or we were losing recess time to do this, or we're doing. But when you step back and what we're really trying to do, that's not the intent isn't to have these non-negotiable moments of these other rigid things, and that's throughout our system. And when we find ourselves in spots where people are saying this doesn't make sense, or when teachers are saying we need more of this or we need more time here, we want to create a culture where we're having those conversations. And I'm excited that I know with the board leadership this year and pushing on our teachers and the leadership in our classrooms, we're having the conversation being brought to light about what we value. But I would say it's the same for a high school science classroom we're doing as well, which is we have labs for a reason. We want to see those labs in action, because getting your hands on a science experiment, seeing it through and doing it right up is our goal. If we're talking about middle school and writing, having that relate to the student's life and be able to apply it in a meaningful way, but definitely with our youngest students in our system, the time that they have and the attention span that they have and the needs that they have that are well beyond sitting and learning to read are there. And we do recognize that as a system. And if there's been, it's kind of one of those things. We're a big system, so we get a lot of interpretations. So if you have 50 classrooms, you're going to have 50 interpretations of what play might be or what's okay or what's not okay. We're going to do our part continuously after tonight and beyond to continue to take not only these messages forward, but to also to share examples of what some best practices might be, to continue to encourage people to see other classrooms and do that, because our resources are there to equip classrooms with the materials, and sometimes messages get lost in the middle. So I just want to point that out as that is our intent, and really the reasons we're doing this in the first place.
I appreciate you saying that, Ryan, because I think you made it loud and clear that, you know, what our expectations are and what our values and belief system is. And I was very encouraged by the things that you put together, Bob, because I think that was, it really tells an interesting story. And I think that now we know for sure what is valued and what we believe in. Mr. Baumgart.
Yeah. Speaking of that opening video you had for us, one of the things that I really appreciate seeing in there, because it's so important as part of education, whether you're talking about children at that age or whether you're talking about adults that I work with as a director of training, it's the I can statement, to be able to get across to them and to the teachers that when they're done with something, the kid can say, I can do ABC, whatever it is. And that's the way it has to be all the way through education. And as I said, even in the adult life, if you're going to teach people, let them know that when you get done with this, I can do something. And I was so pleased to see that we're introducing that at such an early age, because it has to be continuous through the rest of their education. I appreciated that very much.
Karen?
And I'm sure, Barbara, you could go in and read to the kids anytime.
Oh,
because
I know that.
You have all these books,
Oh, I
and
know
they
that.
would love readers.
Oh, I know
and
that.
so
I do get invited to do storytelling, so I do know that.
A
Yeah.
guest a weekly guest appearance at a kindergarten every week.
Well, when I was kindergarten teacher, we used to have super special storytellers every Monday, but
Yeah, we had pictures.
that was
like
a long time ago and things have changed, and I understand that. So,
Debbie Hembrook couldn't be here this evening. So,
yes, I know.
But I did ask her, so Debbie, what do you have to say? Can you give me like 4 quotes if you don't mind sharing? Because when we had some of our planning, she was very thoughtful, and she's has experience in the district that goes beyond the 4 of many of us, the 4 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So Debbie did say, the workshop model is such a great way to personalize learning for our students.
Great.
Play in schools today isn't what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Today, play can take place within learning, the workshop model as well as an avenue to work on the social and emotional. We need to be responsive with our teaching, and as a teacher, I can make the decisions to guide my students. And she followed that up with, this is huge, this is her ad-libbing. We can't plan a 30, 40-minute block of play every day because some days it would be less, some days it would be more.
Right.
This week, my geometry activities are so engaging that our math workshop has been running 30 minutes longer. The kids are in the driver's seat. We have the goal in mind, but how we get there and how fast or slow is in their court. They may be by themselves with a partner in teams. So many things play into the learning process. And maybe, just maybe, they'll take a different turn and up in the place we didn't plan on. Sometimes it's awesome and we go with it, and other times we have to hit the drawing board and create a different roadmap. We need to keep working on bridging 4K, kindergarten, and 1. We need kids working on their language as they work and play together, and that learner independence and confidence is key. And the last one at the bottom, which is covered up a little bit there, it says we just need to keep looking at the numbers and the ways we assess our students, because there are so many early learning benchmarks through kindergarten, 3rd grade, 5th grade that parlay into high school and academic and community success. Hike-ademic's a new word. I'm glad that's what came out. But at the same time, just making sure that those bridges are built to the best possible so our kids are successful when they exit our system. So with that, that's our brief, again, snapshot of the school district of Waukesha.
Bob, I thank you so much, and Ryan, I thank you also for giving us an opportunity to take a look at early learning today in the school district of Waukesha. I'm encouraged by, first of all, the opportunity that you've afforded teachers to give you some honest feedback, and to me that says a lot. And I know that you will hear what they say and listen to what they say, and that we will continue to offer outstanding kindergarten and K-4 programming in the district. So thank you so much. It was, I thought, a very valuable conversation that we definitely needed to have. So thank you. Karen?
I just have 2 quick questions. One, are we one-to-one iPads in 4K?
No.
No.
What do they mean one-to-one technology that one person said?
I think that they would like to see a technology
Oh, they
increase
want
with the
that.
4K.
I see. Okay.
I'm
I
not
thought it
sure,
was-
but that's how I interpreted it.
I know what it is. The one, what is it called?
One-to-one.
Yes, it's when each kid has their own device, an iPad.
And I thought it was,
That came from a 5K teacher.
Okay,
So
thank
they liked the access to the one-to-one, so they were in a school that had one-to-one across the board.
thank you. And then one more question. The dual language, or is it just the two-way? I get them mixed up still, unless I'm in the classroom and I see it, then I know. Has it always been in 4K?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it increasing to new locations this coming fall?
Yes, it's increasing to
Okay.
new buildings and a longer day for some of the students.
Okay, so it was 1 classroom before, and now it's what, maybe 3? 3 sites?
I think 2 sites. And
My understanding is it's been just one class, dual language one way in 4K.
Hi, everyone. Back until 2012, we actually had 6 sections of dual language one way throughout all of our elementary school sites. We went down to 2 sections of dual language one way until next fall, when we're fortunate enough to open a full day 4K dual language 2 way that will include all different types of learners at Banting.
Thanks, Dee.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much for being here. I really, really appreciate your comments and sharing of information. Thanks. Okay, now we'll go back to our agenda, and we'll start off with,
Can you turn the lights back on?
yeah.
Could do that. Thank you.
Okay, the first action item we have this evening is approval of the AP Biology textbook. Do you want to take us into that, Ryan?
tonight we have Erica Miller joining us here tonight, who's our district coordinator of science throughout the district. She's going to be talking about the process that we had gone through and looking at this adoption process that would be taking place across all of our high schools. So Erica, I'm going to let you take it away. Make sure you push the on button.
All right, hi, thank you for bringing me back again. I have Ellie Stigler with me. She is the AP Biology teacher at West this year. Over the last few years, the College Board has undergone a pretty big change in their curricular framework, especially for the sciences, and they've gone from a traditional content model to an inquiry-based model. So with this big curricular shift, we felt it's important that we provide resources for our students that match the curricular framework of the College Board. The College Board does require us to have a textbook for students that matches. So we went through a process this year. The teachers looked through 4 different textbooks that were recommended by the College Board. The College Board does not endorse a specific textbook, but they have several that they feel align. And through the process, we decided that the Biology in Focus through Pearson by Campbell was the one that best met the needs of our students. So that is what we are bringing forth today. It will be a textbook as well as an e-version for every student, so they don't have to carry that really huge book around with them.
That's good. That's good. Mr. Baumgart?
Actually, I think you answered one of my questions about that endorsement, because it bothered me on the bottom of the book where it says, does not involve in production of, nor does it endorse, but this is what they would do.
Yes, on their site, they have several that they recommend, but they don't endorse any, so that they're completely,
one.
yeah, they don't want to be tied to any publishers in
Right.
case there's any
And
kind
that's
of
fine.
issues.
I wanted, when I read that, I thought, do they even approve of this?
Yes,
So
they
it
do.
isn't a recommended, not
Yes.
a recommended. Wrong word. It's an approved by them.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. That answers all I need to know.
Erica, how are you going to use this book?
I will let Ellie handle that question.
Okay.
For me, I have my students read each chapter before we go into class. So I'll assign whatever chapter it might be,
Okay.
concept we're covering, and then we'll go over it and apply those concepts then in class.
Okay, but I think sometimes people think that when we provide textbooks in classrooms, like years ago, you'd start with chapter 1 and go through until the end, and we don't do that. You selectively use the book based on your goals for the year.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
And the e-textbook actually allows the teacher to push out notes and annotations to the students, and allows the student to do their own annotations through it, so they can actually interact with the text much more, especially since they don't get to keep the book. They have the notes and available for them on their iPad.
Okay. Any other comments, or?
Well, I can't
Dr.
say I
Legend?
read it. I mean, I wouldn't pretend.
Well, no.
But I did read a couple chapters, actually, and I was really impressed that they talk about some of the history. Of course, why wouldn't I be? But they credit Linnaeus. So it's not just let's jump in and pretend that we invented this in 1999. And they have a huge section on Charles Darwin, which I thought was wonderful, because I know some districts, some states, his name doesn't even appear.
Yeah, the College Board really brings evolution as the unifying theme.
Yep.
So we felt important to have a book that
Good for them.
follows that.
Yeah, but there's a lot on him and how he got to where he's getting. So when you talk about like an inductive or, way to approach things, I thought that section was really good on the origin of species, because it talks kind of about how he got where he was going, just inductively. So I thought that was great.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a beautiful book. I think it's extremely attractive. The pictures, the graphs, the charts, the topics were, I can't tell you that I read chapters either, but, I went through the book like one afternoon and reminded me so much of how much broader AP biology is compared to the high school biology that I took.
Right.
So I just think, wow, this is pretty high-level learning here. I thought that the chapter summaries were very good, and I thought that the questions, they asked for understanding at the end of each chapter were very valuable. But most of all, I think the things that you provided in the executive summary gave me a really, really good, accurate picture of what the whole book and course was about, so I appreciate that very much. Mr. Baumgart.
This is an action item, so I'd like to move for approval of the AP Biology textbook, Biology in Focus.
I'll second,
Okay.
or somebody else wants to.
Any other discussion or questions? Ms. Ryanchuk?
I would just like to bring up some concerns I had when my son and I were looking through this last night. It's been in our kitchen for a week, and we've been looking at different things, and he asked how, he's got bruises all over his legs from playing football. And I said, where did you get that bruise? And he's like, probably football. And I said, and he goes, Mom, what is a bruise? And then this was right on my nightstand, so I said, let's look it up. And so he was looking it up, and we just planted corn yesterday, and he was looking at the little corn kernels and how they grow. And I ended up flipping to the first page, and I read, evolution is the fundamental principle of biology and the core theme of this book. And I know that Wisconsin, our science curriculum is evolution, but as a Christian, as a Christian family, I just have a huge problem with just believing that we all just happen by chance. And so I was up until 3, and no, I did not read this whole book, but I looked a lot into it, and I feel like if this is an AP biology course, why are we just offering one theory? Why are we just offering one model of, why are we just offering one model to the kids? Why can't we offer others? And in your academic freedom, are you able to talk about how evolution has, the scientists have their questions about it, and it's not a fact?
From the book, the purpose of this book is that we follow the College Board, and the College Board dictates exactly what will be on the assessment and what is to be taught. So that's in the book because it's what's going to be taught. We have no control over that. However, there are state and national laws governing topics of evolution and really kind of go over what teachers are and are not allowed to cover in terms of evolution, and evolution is a required by law for teachers of biology to teach.
Dr. Langell?
And this may not be reassuring to you, I recognize that, but, you know, when you look at the history of it, Charles Darwin was quite an ardent Christian, but he was a scientist, and so I think that he was able to mesh his religious beliefs with his scientific discoveries, which were demonstrable and provable, and which are pretty well accepted as fact, I think, around the scientific community in the world. So I think if we look at Charles Darwin, there's some comfort there, because he didn't see his discoveries and his conclusions as antithetical to his religious beliefs. I mean, he didn't. I know in our modern world some people do, but I mean, I think the more we learn about Darwin, the more comforting it is, because he was quite a committed Christian as an individual, so.
Anyone else? No. Okay. Do we have a motion, please? Okay, we did.
Yes.
Okay, then, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Opposed? 1. Okay, so the motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next,
We can leave
action,
these here,
yes.
right?
You
Now
don't
we
want
get
to
to
take it
carry
back
this
home?
one home.
Yeah, you have to put her on the
walk out
cart,
with
though. No, you won't be able to carry these down the hall.
Okay, our next item then is the approval of supplemental math materials. Brian, would you take us into that, please?
Yeah, and Bob is back here again for any questions tonight, but this is our third time on the agenda, I think third month in a row, trying to solve, fourth month, okay.
That's what he said.
Yeah, fourth, okay. Really, but though, I think really healthy discussions before we not only get into another resource, but understanding the impact that that has and how we're utilizing it as a system and bringing some major awareness, not only to the accessibility that we have by having iPads, but also the lack of accessibility that we can run into, and not just taking for granted that some of these things. Some of the problem solving that has gone on over the last 2 months have included everything from what's downloadable, what's not, what's sort of live in this software, what's not, and what the expectations that we can put on as a classroom teacher to a class, and not necessarily leaving students behind. So I think we've addressed, I would say, about as much of those as we could in the forefront, but have definitely addressed the awareness component of it in the forefront. And this, I think I said this last month, this doesn't just pertain to this particular product or this particular subject area, because it's something that we're going to face in the AP biology exam that has internet access and portals. Anything in the future will continue to. So I think it's going to be an ongoing topic as we go. But otherwise, back to the particular piece of 10 marks. In Dreambox. The quotes that we have on here and the cost that's coming with this are also a spot that we're looking for some approval tonight to move forward. One thing we didn't mention is we're still playing with the costs a little bit in terms of, is this something that we're going to spread out over 3 years? Is something we're going to take care of immediately? And we're really just at the point where we're working on the best quote at this time. So if something does move forward tonight, the final stage we would get to is to look at, is it easier to pay off now, or do we get a better rate in the long term, depending on budget pieces?
It almost looks like we get a better rate if we pay it off at, at the head. Mr. Baumgartner.
But in a motion going forward from here, we would have to cap it. What would that cap number be? I didn't add them up.
There should be a total, right?
Well, you got a cap for the one payment, and I didn't try adding the rest of them together.
Make them up
Oh,
to
you want
more.
to know, yeah.
It-
okay.
Come up to more. Have you talking about those three?
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Yeah,
they're
they come
starting
up
at some
to,
sort of finance.
Yeah, actually a little over 5.
I apologize, I can't hear you.
I'm assuming they're going to be charging us some sort of finance fee if we do 3 installments. They're probably not
Right.
going to call it a finance fee, though.
Well,
Yeah,
right.
well, you get a bigger, I
Transaction
think if,
With
it
the
should- it was in
discount.
one of the documents over the past couple months. If you do obviously if you pay up front, we get a larger spot. I do believe 10 Marks stayed pretty consistent with their rate even over the 3 years, and Dreambox had to adjust theirs slightly. I want to say Dreambox was like almost if you go into the quotes, it might be $2.50 or $3 per kid if you break it down over the 3 years.
I'll make a motion then, Barbara.
You're going to,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I think we've talked about this a number of times, and it satisfies my concerns of some time back that we begin to have some uniformity throughout our resources that we use in the district. That satisfies that, plus the fact that it provides some real opportunities for the kids to have an alternative resource in the classroom as opposed to strictly at home, and I think we've resolved that issue. So I'm going to make a motion for approval of this to be contingent upon resolving the method of finance as opposed to the amount of finance that we're going to involve in it, as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Second? Okay, any further discussion or questions? Karen?
Would this be an example of intentional learning?
Yes.
Perhaps, yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah, through the use of the tool, yes. And
Yes.
it'll give us some instructional guarantees across our system in all buildings and some experiences then.
And it's consistent?
It will increase the consistency in the
Right,
experiences.
right. I mean, all kids will be working with the same materials, the same concepts, the same skills at the same grade level, correct?
At the readiness level, yes.
At the
yes.
readiness level, of course, of course. And this, it appears that this is very much in line with our personalized learning system. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely.
The district's been using digital tools for math. This is just.
Right. So if we walked into a classroom during a math block, would we see most of the children working independently with Dreambox or 10 Marks versus the teacher being in charge of the instruction?
I would say no.
No?
I would say it would be a tool that would be used as part of the instruction with
Okay.
the teacher's guidance.
Well put. Yes, Mr.
I
Baumgart.
asked that question when I met with Rose and Dan?
Dan?
Dan. And you might see in a classroom, some kids working in that,
Yes.
but the others in independent.
Yes, yes, that's,
It's hard
yeah.
to define.
I understand. Karen?
Thank you. I just want to say, there was was it a third grade teacher, Ryan, who got the, was it Fox 6 Teacher of the Year at Higher?
That was,
a-
that was Debbie Hembrook.
That was Debbie Hembrook in kindergarten.
There was a party going on there. There was news broadcasters. There were video cameras. There were balloons. All her family was there. This classroom was packed. And there were kids like that had no idea that there was something going on. They were so intent on learning. They were doing all of these things. They were on Dreambox, Alex, I'm not sure which one, but it couldn't have mattered if there was an elephant in the room. They were so intentional about their learning.
There you
Sorry,
go.
I'm gonna stop that.
She does have an exceptional learning environment. Yes.
Just a couple questions. We're buying licenses, correct, basically? How many licenses are we buying for 10 marks? Are we buying 16,000 licenses?
No.
It says quantity?
On the last page, that was my question too. It looks like there's 3,000.
Yeah, for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how many licenses we're buying. And the other question I have, so let's just do the 10 marks, Bob. We'll just start with 10 marks. It says 16,419 under quantity for the math premium 36 months. Is that how many licenses we're buying? Because that seems like a lot of licenses.
Yeah. Divide by 3.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So,
This is for 3 years.
okay, so
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So think that would fit many 3rd through 8th and a portion of 9th.
okay. So then the other question I have is the subscription expiration date is 6/30/18. Does that mean at 6/30/18 is the last day we're getting updates to the program? What does the subscription rate exactly mean? Does that mean they will not be updating, we won't be getting the updates? I'm
So
assuming they're doing.
it would start, if it did the 3 years, would start July 1st
Yep.
of this year. So, and then it would roll for the 3 years ending on the 30th. So that, by that time, we would have made a proposal to either continue with the resources.
Right.
Or maybe a review and maybe another direction or a
For
different tool.
updates.
Yes.
Yes, because we will own the software.
Oh,
It's just
no,
that-
it's continuously updated through the 3 years.
Yeah, but after that 3 years is up, we will not be getting any more updates.
Not unless we continue
Now,
the partnership.
We sign another agreement with them.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so we may end up spending another 275 grand in 3 years? Or, and I don't know if this question was asked, or is the second subscription period less money?
The
We
longer,
already have
the longer the commitment with both partnerships, the less it goes.
okay. So the next 3 years after this one, it should be less than 275.
Yes.
Good question.
And
Ellen?
And
Just
oh,
to-
I had
oh,
one
go
more
ahead.
question. What company is owned by Amazon?
10 marks.
10 marks. Are we buying it from Amazon or are we buying it from a third party?
Third party, I believe.
Third party.
The
So
10
Amazon
mark.
is not selling directly to,
No.
Preston, it looks like.
No.
Ellen?
Just to piggyback on what you were saying, just hypothetically, Bob, if we buy the software without the updates, how does that hurt us?
I don't think that's possible because it's continuously updated over time. So if we buy it and activate it today, they may make adjustments to some of the teacher resources tonight, and we'd have access to that immediately. It's a cloud-based, it's continuously updated. The questions for the kids are continuously updated over time too.
Okay.
So it's
I mean,
not,
I'm just
like
saying-
what we buy today
Yeah.
will not look the same like a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now.
Okay.
It'll be continuously improved.
Okay, and
Continuously
assuming that
updated.
that's all positive, which you are assuming,
Yes.
'Cause, then obviously we're getting, constant improvements. But when you buy a biology textbook, you buy it, whether you get the ebook or this. There's no updates.
Right.
Right.
So I'm a little confused as to exactly why we need these updates. Do these people think, oh, whoops, that problem we gave to the students in Denmark's Part A2 wasn't very good, so here's a different problem?
I guess I would look at it, I'm drawing, how would you describe it? Like when an update to a textbook is made, there's version 1, version 2, version 3. That's how I view the updates for the digital piece.
But they aren't. I mean, where does that happen?
It's continuous. I mean, it's constantly
No,
happening.
but not in our AP biology textbook. Nobody's gonna update that for how many years?
Oh, I guess.
The updates are the progressive learning, aren't these progressively where you get harder and the questions?
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, if I were to promote a textbook purchase,
Yeah.
some of the resources or the thinking or the planning behind it could be outdated
Sure.
sooner than the digital piece, because we'd have to buy a new textbook to update a component of the textbook. I may not be understanding you, and I apologize.
I think we are, but we're a little bit not.
Okay.
You know, and again, obviously, this has changed with everything being ebooks, and obviously, this is all, you know, digital. But I remember even back with Heidi Lobs, we would talk about buying a book, and it should be good for at least 10 years. And whether that was biology, math, history, or whatever. I mean, or English grammar, the idea was that's really not going to change in 10 years. There's just not really going to change those fundamentals.
Well, not history, but science.
Well,
Not anymore.
yeah, it may or may not be, but I think what you're saying is, are the problems for the kids going to change? Because the designers of this really think, oh, that was a bad problem to use, so here's a better one? Yeah, your answer's yeah.
My thought on that, my comment on that would be, these companies take quite a bit of feedback from the practitioners to try to make it the best tool for the students. So as they'd be listening to our teachers or to our coaches or to our principals to try to adjust it to meet the needs of the kids across the board. One example is 10 marks right now does not come in Spanish. It is read over in Spanish. And one of the resources and updates they plan on having soon is that it will be in both languages. So that would just be a natural
Well, that's an
use.
understandable thing, I understand that, but I
Okay.
guess, and I don't mean to quibble, and I'm sure it sounds like I am, but I'm a little, kind of a little surprised because, okay, so they get feedback from our teachers or teachers around the country, and that's all great, and then they give us digitally a better set of problems on 10 marks for a certain unit because they thought there were some flaws in earlier
Or
problems.
a better way.
Or the program itself.
There's a significant difference between a textbook version of education here and this thing. This is an interactive situation that the student is participating in, and from the time that this first came to light in February, I think, here, when I met with Rose and Dan a couple months ago, they're actually making changes already, and it wasn't strictly in the problems that they were presenting to the kids. Sometimes it was in the assessments. Sometimes it was in the way they were categorizing the feedback that might go to the teacher, or might go to the kid, might go to the teacher, might go to the parent. So there's so much more than just the text version,
Yeah,
or there's nothing interactive in it. So it's a little bit of apples and oranges, and
it is, no, I
and
absolutely.
in today's
agree.
world, with software changing, it's almost real time.
That's right.
That's what we're buying.
That's
is-
right.
Is the real-time conversions and updates. It's not strictly changing any historical, well, this one's historical, right? So that's, I guess that,
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps, but that,
It does, and I'm not disagreeing with you, and it is apples and oranges, but I guess what I'm saying is I'll be interested to see what they change, how often they change it. Is it substantive? Is it programmatic? Is it just that
They want to make
this
fun
is
of
a fluid situation where, oh my gosh, this problem is better to teach this? I mean, and that's all
All of
fine.
the above.
I'm just trying to get a handle on what we're getting
Right.
for our money for the updates.
Right.
okay.
Couple things quick. Like you said, the dynamic piece and its response. First of all, the membership, the 16,000, just looked it up quick. And Mary Jo got some information for me. It's a membership, you actually get the membership per child because as they get in, they log in. It does keep track of their progress, everything from number of minutes using it to what they're using to their success. It really, instead of putting a bookmark in, it sort of bookmarks where you should be in terms of your work and how well you've done things. So, yes, for each child. So each year that membership sort of renews as part of this. In terms of the upgrades, a lot of that really is what you had stated. It's going to be much more than a problem. It's going to be all of a sudden you'll see a program like this all of a sudden include videos. And there'll be a big upload of videos that they maybe didn't have, or there'll be a chance for an audio version. All of a sudden there'll be a chance for a whole new series of developing these skills with a set of maybe a new tool comes in that they can use. A calculator flashes up where they upgrade something like that.
Okay.
So.
And just the last point on that, and the numbers are exactly identical here, I just added them up.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, so if there's interest, it doesn't show up, but that's another point. But, I probably am gonna forget what I was just gonna say, but, so there's no interest here, and then as long as we are paying for all these upgrades, which I think it sounds like we're gonna have to, and that's fine, are we 100% positive that this program does not have cookies in it, pick up anything on our kids? Because I gave you that article from the New York Times, and that is a concern, and it's an ongoing concern in a lot of school districts, that these things that go per child, Johnny X, Susie Y, that program has those children in it. And what the New York Times article was saying is that some New York schools have found out, and hopefully these companies aren't among them, that companies are collecting information on kids.
And what do they do with it?
That we would not authorize them to do if we knew.
And what do they do with it?
Well, they were approaching those kids electronically in other ways. It came to the attention of parents. I mean, I can't remember who ended up with that article.
It was in
Pat
Bloom.
Madden has it, I think. I mean, our system, we would have to allow the cookie to be placed on the device.
We have to allow cookies?
You would have to. Even on your computer at home in your browser settings, there's a setting to allow cookies to be placed on your.
Right, or you can deny it.
Or you can set it where no cookies
You
are
can block
placed.
them,
Yes.
right.
So everybody has that.
Yeah.
So we would have to
Block it.
allow, we would have to allow the cookies to be placed because browsers are set default to allow the cookies,
I know,
which allows certain things to work differently in your browser. So
right.
if your securities are set correctly, you allow the
Sure.
cookie. You just
Right.
don't blanket allow it. So if they were dropping a cookie on our system, we would know it.
Okay,
Good.
well, that's good,
And
but
if,
I just
you know,
want
if
us to
New-
be
New
aware of
York-
that
If New York
because,
didn't know it, I really don't know what, I mean,
How would we know it?
how would we know it?
Mm-hmm.
Our system would be set up to allow the cookie, so we would have to actually click a button to allow the cookie.
Okay.
okay, so right now,
Yeah,
we
that
would go
be
into
done.
this
It would be done
disallowing.
system-wide. It would be on our firewall.
So you're saying we would disallow it at the outset, and if that change was coming from them, we would not allow it?
If we were, we would not allow a cookie to be put on our system that was stripping data out and sending it somewhere else.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's
I
my
mean,
next
that would
question.
be,
And
that
I'll
would be
put you
against
in
a
charge of
federal
doing
law
it.
that does not allow educational information, and you're familiar with that. There's a
Yeah.
federal law that does not
Yeah.
allow you to share
Right,
educational information with me about one of your students or somebody who's
Right,
not authorized,
absolutely.
just like HIPAA.
but that's good to know, and I trust then that whoever does, and maybe, our IT people, but that we will definitely not allow.
Yeah, we would not allow a cookie in our system that is
Okay.
stripping out classified student or
Okay.
sensitive student
That's all I'm
information.
asking, that's good to know,
Bob,
that's good.
it looks like we're going to take this on for 3 years, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then after 3 years, do we have to, make another investment
Yep.
as great as this or lesser?
If we were probably to stay, it'd probably be lesser.
Okay,
I hope so.
okay. But so it looks like every 3 years that we'll have to pay for an update
Yeah, well,
or to stay in the program.
I mean, right now,
License, yeah.
right now, we are paying, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and this is kind of one of those ongoing battles because it went from schools paying for this out of budgets and finding good examples in these companies emerging over the last couple of years to, here's a couple that have proven to sort of provide the best quality of experience. But in 3 years, the predictability of these companies sustaining, if not the competition being,
Of
you know,
course.
so
Of
I would
course.
think it,
It's all
yeah,
about money.
I would say we would hope that this world is just, it's truly amazing to know that the software has the ability to provide just right instruction in some ways for students and
Yes.
provide these interactive experiences that
Yes.
used to be printed out or handed out.
That's
and kids
right.
have access to them like this. So I can't imagine where we'll be in 3 years, but I think our intent would be that we continue to review what are the products that are out there that seem to be a fit to our values here in our system. And this company might continue to thrive, but unfortunately what I'm seeing is it's almost easier for new companies to come in and say, we do this and more. The
better.
competition seems
Yeah.
to be out there, and I don't know how many of these companies reinvest in themselves to totally recreate.
It used to be said that as soon as a textbook is published, it's already outdated. Because now, the doubling of knowledge or tripling of knowledge is so rapid and so intense that there's no way that you could be absolutely current up to today. So,
2 + 2 is 4, still is.
Yeah, let's hang with that.
3,000 years ago, and it still is, right?
yes, Karen, I'm sorry.
I don't mean to be difficult, but is there a price for this and then a price without the updates or no?
No, that the updates are the updates. I mean, that is what you're paying for.
There,
Otherwise, it would be a static piece of software
yeah,
sitting on our
then we,
servers.
then
I just,
we probably would approach it like
I
then.
thought it was still
kinda-
I thought
It's
it
kind of
was,
like Internet Explorer or your Windows. You get updates every Tuesday. Updates are released every Tuesday for Windows, whether you download them or not.
Right.
They're out there. Security, updates for Internet Explorer, updates for your Office suite.
That's
Every
true.
Tuesday, Microsoft releases updates.
That's true.
And Apple releases them only once a month. So when you buy that piece of software from Windows, you are basically paying for somebody sitting in Seattle to make sure that that software stays up to date with any threat that comes out, any new technology that comes up, anything, and then you get that every Tuesday. That's what you pay for when you pay $600 for the Office, we'd say.
And if we could email Bill Gates and tell him how awful Windows 2008
We love
was. And could he please fix it? Would he do it on Tuesday?
He might do it on Tuesday. Bill
Okay.
is pretty good on Tuesdays. That's his
There
day.
you go.
That's
That's his day.
Day.
Okay.
Okay, could we have a motion in this regard?
I think
We do have a motion, I'm sorry. It's such a long discussion. All right. All those in favor of approving the supplemental math materials as presented, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, 5-0. Okay, the next,
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
the next action item, approval of E-Achieve 5-year elementary. Ryan, will you take us into that?
Yeah, this one might be difficult too, but Rick and I have been talking because it requires F&F in contracts, it requires full board. So what we were hoping to do tonight was to build off of what we've done last time, which is from the CNI standpoint. Here's the curriculum, here's the design, here's the plan. Last month, Rick was here presenting, a parent is here as well. So we're looking at moving the E-Achieve elementary version, which is in a pilot year this year, to a little bit more sturdy platform that families. One error we've already made in this was that in looking, this needs to be a 4-year, so to coincide exactly with where it currently is at. The E-Achieve has 4 years to go by the time this would be updated, so we'd want to be on the same cycle as the full E-Achieve program and not have a separate. So those are a couple errors in tonight's thinking, but I think what we were hoping to do was, from a CNI standpoint, a curriculum standpoint, get some improvement and move forward to those other conversations. So, but anyway, Rick will have a lot more detail than that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Hi, Rick.
Hi. So, the information I shared with you is just an update from when I was here just a few weeks ago. And there's, now that open enrollment is finished, we have some real application numbers that we can work with. And we received a total of 107 applications for elementary from outside of the district. And then there were some additional applications from inside the district, in-district transfers. I think there were 5. 2 of them, I think, are in attendance at our current Waukesha Elementary School. I also updated the financial projections, so hopefully they're a little easier to understand tonight. And I added also a piece about standards mastery to the update that I was providing. And I had reported last time that that was one area where, at least reporting out to parents, that we were working on. We're continuing to receive the training for that, but in terms of the actual progress, about half of our students are already on pace to experience a year's growth at their grade level. The other half joined eAchieve behind grade level, and most of them have already made up a year's worth of growth at the level from where they started, and are now starting to work on their grade levels. I don't think they will all be at their grade level by the time the year is over, because we don't have a lot of time left, but they've closed the gap by being with us. There are a few students who are struggling. One has already been identified as needing special education, so that's a real benefit to them. And there are two others that we're watching very closely, that there may be an evaluation coming at some point if things continue on as they are. But so I wanted to update you on that as well.
Good news, Rick. Wow.
Yeah.
Very good news. Mr. Baumgartner.
You sound an awful lot like a guy I hear on the radio a lot, yeah.
Not anymore, not until next year, probably.
Anyway, appreciate your comments. Now, the 107 you talked about, I want to make sure I was clear on what I heard. The 107 were all outside of the district?
That's correct.
Coming in, and what was the district?
5.
Oh, only 5 that would be in one of our schools if they weren't doing this?
Chances are they would apply to a different virtual elementary school.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's a wonderful point, Rick. That's all I got.
Okay, anything else?
Just a quick point, Rick, so
Yes.
forgive me, I know I brought this up last time. As you pay the bills in your family, you take your income and then you take your expenses. And then you're calling it revenue remaining. Is that, I mean, that's just such an unusual thing for me. You know, I always think of it as a net, you know, it's a positive net.
It
But
is.
that's really what you mean.
It is, right.
Say
It just
revenue remaining.
doesn't
It's
sound
kind
as
of a
good
neat
for us
way
to
to
call
put
it
it.
profit or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you're right, that is what it is.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because it's kind of
It's real clear.
a very positive way to phrase it. Okay.
I would agree, Rick. Where does that remaining revenue stay into your program's account or into the district?
It's really the district.
So the money that's left over goes into the district general fund,
Yes,
not into yours?
yes.
Why is it that you couldn't, accrue an amount?
I'd
for-
love to. That's not.
Is
that's-
it a law?
That's not,
I'm
that's
sure
not the
you
way,
would, but
that's not
is
the
it a
way
law? Is-
we're arranged with the
Is that
district.
just the way school districts operate?
Yeah, that's just the way we're
Charter
operating.
school.
Pardon me?
It's an instrumentality
These
charter school.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, that's why. I understand that. All right. Yes, Ellen?
Thank you. I would move approval of the eAchieve 5-year elementary contract.
Second. Oh,
For 4 years.
wait a minute.
Yeah, it's 4 years, sorry, so I would change that to 4. And I'm sure finance will look at all this too.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the approval of eAchieve 4-year elementary K-5 contract. Okay, all those in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Manager.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Keep up the good work.
Bart, can I ask Rick something? So Rick, I have a personal question.
Sure.
So my daughter takes eAchieve Fayette,
Oh,
and when she's up to like 10 o'clock downloading music, she says that's homework because she needs to run to it.
I don't know that that's a specific requirement of the class. That may be something she's feeling like will keep her energized while she's running.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, we'll now move into the information items. Content coordinators, update goals, evidence of results, world languages. Will you take us into that?
Tonight, I'd like to introduce Sharon Tebow. She is our world language coordinator here for the district tonight. Part of our work as a district team this year has been to really to coordinate as best we can the multiple teachers, programs, and sites that we have across this district. The size of our district provides so many opportunities, but it also provides an opportunity for things to need to constantly sort of corral in some way with good communication and leadership and teamwork. So Sharon Tebow, being new to our district this year, has had a chance to get to not only know our buildings in the town and all the railroads, but also had a chance to get to know different teachers, teams, and progress. So she's here tonight to give a general overview of what she's seen in the Department of World Languages across our system, as well as to foreshadow a couple of goals that they have.
Great, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to extend some thanks for having me here tonight. I think it's really important that we do this on a regular basis, communicate out, especially because there hasn't been leadership in this area for a very long time. So I'm happy to be here to speak on behalf of our team and just share some general celebrations, give you a little bit of an update as to what we've been doing as a team, and also foreshadow, like Ryan said, some of the things that we're going to be doing as we lead into the next school year and beyond. At the beginning of the school year, being new, I had to do a lot of investigating. So that meant talking with and working with a variety of stakeholders, one being Dee Garcia. She's been an extremely wonderful asset to my learning in this area. So far, in addition to building principals, anybody who supports world languages, the teachers as well. So a variety of stakeholders. And in order to formulate a vision, before we can really dig into any of the work that we are just now getting to, we really needed some sort of guiding principles as we work towards defining the pathways to the work. So one of the first major tasks that took almost until the end of November was to really bring those different stakeholder groups together to help us formulate a world languages vision. So in September and October, we did that. I asked for input from building leaders, including effectiveness coaches, principals, and associate principals who oversee or evaluate those world languages teachers, and all of our 26 world languages teachers had input. In order to help us frame what our vision would consist of, I asked teachers to really consider two big questions. One, what does excellent world language instruction look like? And then, what should our students know and be able to do as a result of our programming? All teachers had input into this. So when we came together, there was a team in October of representatives from each building that came together to help us. And so taking all the input I had from various district leaders and building representatives, I put together a draft. And then I let our team rip it apart. And taking all of that information together, we came up to what I feel is a very nice all-encompassing vision that's going to take us a long time to accomplish, and that's exactly what the vision should be, what we're working toward. And so in November, we finally adopted that vision, and that's been the backbone or the foundation for the work that we're starting to craft right now.
And the vision is next slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is our vision. What's inside the center is the actual vision statement that's brought up at every one of our team meetings. What you see around are some of those key components or tenets that our team members have identified as important practices that we take hold of and the things that we provide to our students. Above all, they really want to collaborate, and that's why I'm really glad that I'm here so that we can do that together. So we're coming together a lot more now. That's a huge celebration for us. More importantly, the experiences that they want to provide to our students are authentic and real world. And that's really a new paradigm shift, a mind shift for many of our teachers, including myself, in the way that languages are taught and how students acquire the language. So being able to look beyond, for example, a textbook and really look at resources that are made by native speakers for native speakers. That's something that takes a lot of time on the part of our teachers to be able to dig for those resources. But now that we're coming together more often, we have the opportunity to work together. Last month, you had the opportunity to listen to some of the new and exciting things that our teachers want to bring to our students in terms of travel. So being able to provide those opportunities to apply what they are doing with the language in and out of the classroom. So it goes beyond the four walls now. So you've got students that are traveling and actually applying that language, which is exactly what we want to see. So the focus has shifted to, yes?
Oh, I don't mean.
Oh, the focus has shifted to learning about the language to now what can students, how can they demonstrate what they know and what they can do with the language?
And I just have a question, because I think this is great, this immersion in, the world outside the classroom. But if it mandates our students engaging in trips, I have a problem, because we do have always a number of students that can't afford to go. So what else do we do?
That's a great question. We have another celebration. We have a lot to offer right here in the Milwaukee area. I'm originally from Green Bay, and we do, as a former Spanish teacher, have a large Latino population in the Green Bay area.
And I
Here we've got a
understand
lot of
Spanish,
that.
but what about French? What do we do to immerse them in French?
I was invited, and I used to teach Spanish, so my French is very low. But I was invited to help chaperone French Day, which was held on the campus of UWM on February, I think it was Valentine's Day, February 14th. That was awesome. The way that those teachers engaged the students, our middle school teachers came together and did that together. All of their grade 8 students were there for the most part. And they got to interact with other students and other teachers from middle on through high school in this area. So that's one way. Teachers are not mandating that trips are taken, but we know that there is such a value in that application beyond the borders of our classroom. So I'm really happy to see that that's still going to continue. Yes, we have a large stronghold of Latinos in our area right here in Waukesha, and so there's also tons of opportunities, and I've been able to go on some field trips with those students as well, including applications right within our own elementary schools. So we had a teacher from South High School who got together with dual language teachers at higher elementary, and then they went to Discovery World. They had reading partners together. So not just trips outside the country, but practical ways that kids can apply the language. So we're very proud of this vision. And so now the work, I had told the teachers, now the real work begins. So how do we start to work, toward that vision? Part of the work that I do is visiting classrooms. I enjoy being in the classroom. I enjoy seeing things come to life. My views of teaching a world language have changed drastically with new research. Again, not teaching around the language, but how are kids actually using the language? So one of the big things that I did this year was collect data. Prior to this, I don't think teachers in our area were getting specific feedback through a world languages lens. So this year I've really made a focus on getting into the classroom, giving individualized feedback to teachers on their practice, but then also logging that into a data portal whereby I can drill down very deeply to teacher level, to school level, to grade level, course level, and to be able to share out. So what I've included here for you today is a little bit of data around what you see in the classroom on the instructional side, and then also a little snapshot of what we're seeing as of like the end of April, I want to say, is when this was last updated, on the student side. So how are teachers instructing and what are kids doing with the language? So one of our goals through ACTFL, which stands for the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, that's our national standards. Our national organization aims for 90% or greater in the target language. When I walk into classrooms, huge celebration, teachers are getting kids to understand while they stay in the target language. They are good decision makers about when to use English, and they don't stay in the target language just to stay in the target language. They're very precise about when they switch to English. So what you see here is percentage of primary language of instruction. I think that's something that we need to celebrate. It's not something that I had when I was taking Spanish in middle or high school, but our teachers are doing it even in our wheel grade 6 and 7 classes. How do we do that? Something else that I highlight as one of our key high leverage practices, we stay in the target language through a variety of these comprehensible input strategies. And there's quite a few that you see here in this pie chart or in this circle chart here. Teachers need to utilize a variety of these strategies so that students are taking in that input so that they can comprehend and then they can do something with that. In yellow, you see the percentage of time. I tried to do an if-then statement. If teacher uses comprehensible input strategies, does that help us stay in the target language? And we're showing a positive correlation. Yes, they are. On the student side of things, when I walk into a classroom, oftentimes I try to get right in and see what they're doing. I don't try to just be an observer. I'm very actively taking notes, taking photos, recording what students are doing audially to give that feedback to teachers. There are a few different questions that I like to ask students. And one of those questions is, what are you learning about? If a student is able to articulate what that I can statement is, that's extremely powerful because it tells us that they know what they're supposed to be responsible for doing with the language. An example would be, I can talk about my family and friends. So to a student, I might ask, what are you expected to be doing? What are you learning about? Well, we're learning about family, and I should be able to describe my brothers and sisters using X, Y, and Z verbs or adjectives. That's pretty important. Our students can do that. We just need to work on refining that, using more specific I can statements and getting away from the grammar. But our teachers are doing a good job now of really focusing in on what kids can do with the language. Yep. The other question that I ask is, what are your next steps? If a student is able to tell me something simple like, we're going to be doing this activity, I think we're going to have more practice. I've had kids tell me lengthy responses where I can capture the audio. Well, we're doing this because we're going to have a summative next week. So we're doing all this practice and we're looking at these rubrics to help us prepare for this. That's extremely powerful. And right now, 60% of our kids can articulate that. Just the simple fact that kids know what they're learning, why they're learning it, and what their next steps are, it's very, very critical. So a lot of the work I do is getting into the classrooms and bringing together the teachers. Like I said before, they haven't had this kind of representation in a long time. So when I asked them in October, when we got 2 hours together, would you guys like to start meeting again? They either applauded, they raised their hand, or they said a firm and resounding yes. We've been able to meet now, it'll be 6 times, and the teachers do this on their own time. I get 16 to 17 of the 26 teachers, including some eAchieve teachers, that come. And they are helping drive the work that we're going to be digging into. So now we have some data, we have a vision. We have teachers that place value on collaboration and really seeing this program grow. Another celebration, it is growing. With the influx of our dual language program, all of these students that are coming up and coming into our high schools, we are expanding our program. French numbers are up for next year as well. That's awesome. So there's a need for this, and the teachers want to work together and make sure that we give students these opportunities, including new pathways. So next month I'll be returning to propose a brand new AP Spanish Literature and Culture course. What exists right now is the AP Spanish Language and Culture course. So this would be the next pathway for our students. And at the onset, it'll be accessible to our dual language students. But with personalized learning coming around, some blended learning options happening at the middle school level, we could see students possibly taking Spanish 2, for example, in grade 8. So then this course would be accessible to them. So we want to continue to increase the enrollment, but also increase these pathways for our students. So we're looking at launching that in the 2016-17 school year. As we continue our curriculum work, we are looking at revision of all of our Understanding by Design syllabi, making sure that they're aligned to our learning targets. Last year, before I arrived, learning targets were firmed up. Now we have the work to do around that UBD process of really looking at what do we want kids to know and to be able to do? What are those rubrics? And from those rubrics, the criteria to assess what kids can know and do, we need to develop common assessments. So that's where we're going. Fortunately, we have a team of 11 teachers coming in the first 4 days after school lets out to work 8-hour days on redeveloping our Spanish 1 and our French 1 curriculum. Those units that we devise will have common assessments. And that'll be part of our world languages goal for next year to really measure competencies, which we developed this year in those meetings. So we've defined right now what kids should know and be able to do by the end of a level 1, a level 2, a level 3. So with that, we need to now dig into what does that look like? And can we collect some data around that going into next year to really know, are our kids achieving in the school district of Waukesha at such and such level proficiency-wise along the ACTFL continuum? So we'll continue next year working on our redesign of our units, and those will be aligned to the AP themes. And we will have common integrated performance assessments, which really focuses in on what kids can do across the modes of communication. So hitting all of our learning targets, listening, reading, writing, speaking. It sounds great, and it's a lot of work for the teachers, including myself. It's a mind shift to really move in this direction. So I'm really excited that the teachers are gung-ho about doing this work together. And I'm really glad that we have support here in the district that values this.
Any questions, comments? Dr. Langelo?
Yeah, Sharon, thanks very much. And I hope you understand my comments aren't meant to be critical of you.
No, not at all.
And when I was in high school, a little while ago, our high school had a world languages outlook, which included classical, Latin and Greek, the Romance, Spanish and French, German, and one Oriental language, which at that point was Chinese. So that was a high school X years ago, right? I understand budget-wise, and so it has nothing to do with you. We now basically, let's say, to be fair, right, offer Spanish and French. And the vast percentage of our students take Spanish. Much smaller group take French, right?
Correct. I can't recall exactly the enrollment figures. I'm looking at that right now. I want to say right now we have 1,500 around enrolled in Spanish.
But percentage-wise of our students that take language, isn't it, what is it, 75, 80% take Spanish?
I don't know those figures. I'm not sure.
Well, that's something you might want to look at. I mean, because it gets to my point, which is, I know we offer in eAchieve, and I'm
Yes.
glad we do, Latin, Japanese, Mandarin, and German, and I'd like to also know from our, let's say 9 through 12 or 8 through 12, how many students
That's my question.
take those? Because if we talk about world languages, and not to denigrate what you're doing, we're really labeling a program that really it's not quite fair, because we don't really offer world languages. And if a couple of our students take Japanese, I'm thrilled. Latin, you know, Mandarin, German, that's great, but we used to even actually offer German.
Yes.
So in that case, we did have an Indo-European language and then 2 Romance languages. Now we just have 2 Romance languages, period. And so, I mean, I hope we can encourage the development of these in eAchieve or even beyond, so that we can legitimately say, and I mean legitimately, not to denigrate you, that we do have a world language program, because we really don't. I mean, isn't that fair? We really don't.
So what I can say to that, and I point well taken, because I was just looking, I think on Twitter or through one of the publications that I receive about I was surprised by the number of people that speak German and learn German. Now we got to think outside of the United States, think about in terms of being in Europe. That's huge for business. And while we don't offer it face-to-face anymore, and we do offer it in eAchieve, that's something that we need to look at as well. But if I can offer something, the students do have those choices. They are widely advertised, and we do have a stronghold of students that access the courses. Yes, they're in eAchieve.
But can you get numbers to us next time you come back? 'Cause I
You
think-
want to know how many students?
Yeah, are in these four, plus what, you know, what the percentages of our high school, let's say high school students who take Spanish, which I've heard is extremely high, I mean, I think 80-something, as opposed to French, which means that, to be quite honest, we offer Spanish with a little touch of French, and then hopefully we're getting more students in these others, although it's not in the brick schools, it's, you know, online. So, point one, you know, if you can come back and tell us that, I'd
Sure.
like to know that substantially. And then last, as we look at these and acquiring the competencies, and I really like what you're talking about with pedagogy and outside experiences and all that, I think that's great. But what percentage of our students, for instance, who take Spanish or French, move on to the 5th year? And what percentage of our students taking Spanish and or French take the AP exam? So can you get those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
'Cause
and
that
we
would
actually
really
have
help.
those, I believe, right now on the WISE Dash. I think those numbers are available as of last year. They'll take the AP exams coming up in a couple weeks, but
No.
we do have some data around that right now
Okay, if
of
you
the
could get that to
percentages.
us, 'cause that really speaks to where we are with our languages in this district, and no criticism at all of you, but I think we have a pretty not good. I mean,
What-
when we talk about world languages, not good, realistically.
One thing I would add is that Spanish and French, we don't encourage our students to take Spanish or French or pretty much any language through eAchieve. We know that language learning, language acquisition is better suited online, face-to-face, with a mix of blended, sure. Our eAchieve, from what I understand, when they advertise, they do advertise the Latin, they advertise the Mandarin, they advertise the Chinese and the German.
Maybe Japanese.
But we don't advertise the Spanish or French because we want those students to take it face-to-face first, and our eAchieve teachers are the first to tell us that as well. Because we do notice that it is extremely difficult, not necessarily to learn structures and functions online, but to really become proficient in a language and to acquire it. It's so important to have that face-to-face instruction.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Barbara. Is it because, maybe this is a question for you, Ryan, did our language options go down because we didn't have the kids to fill the classrooms, and then we had only 10 kids in a class, so then we had to drop that? Or did we just take them out and then, or, you know, what was the
Yeah.
deciding?
It was
It's still, they're still run by enrollment. So oftentimes, I mean, about 2 months ago, all the high schools are upstairs in the middle schools sharing out what students have selected. And then when we can run things, we do, when we can combine things, we do. And other times, eAchieve can provide a source of us not, of a different format of offering it. So there's still an enrollment piece. And that's not just for this, for world language, that's for everything from our musics and arts and all courses trying to run.
And then one more question. And so Carson, my son, wants to take German, but he said in STEM, you have to take Spanish in 6th grade. You can't take German. You can't take anything else.
Yeah, well, and again, STEM's a charter school, so because it's a engineering school, they had certain pieces that they could offer and certain things they couldn't. And so I do believe there's still some online options. Those are still always available to students through, but STEM being a charter and being a smaller school, I know that they didn't have some of the numbers to be able to offer a lot of things, including some of their music offerings are limited. They have them, but they do a different style of it.
Sharon, are our French and Spanish classes total immersion or not?
Can you clarify what you mean by total
Well,
immersion?
I've heard, you know, from my grandkids who take foreign languages in a different school district, that all the teacher does is speak Spanish or French. There's never any English spoken.
No. Teachers are extremely precise and very decisive when it comes to thinking about when they will use English. There's a point where 90% is great, but if your students aren't able to complete the task that you're asking them to complete,
Yes.
because you stay in the target language without moving to English, then it's not a win-win situation.
Right.
So, no, they aren't. And that's where some of those nice opportunities, for example, Cheryl was here last month talking about the Concordia language villages. That's total immersion.
Yes, it is.
That's where they will get some of those experiences. It's extremely difficult to do that in a four-walled classroom for the 50-minute block that we have together with the kids. But it's definitely a goal to stay in the target language as much as possible. And what I would like to see is stay in the target language as much as possible, but also getting the kids to use the language more on their own rather than being prompted to perform a certain task, what's expected. So I would like to see it on both ends, teacher and target language, and then also what students are able to do. I want to see more natural use of the language rather than I have to do activity X or I have to do the summative interpersonal speaking, for
Just
example.
one more question. In Wisconsin, we do not have to have, our high school students do not have to have a foreign language to graduate, correct?
They need to have elective credits, so a world language would count
As
as
an elective
one of those
credit.
elective
Okay.
credits. And colleges and universities are extremely diverse in what they require.
Yeah, some do,
And
some
many
don't.
will take the placement exam in lieu of taking that AP assessment, but we want to see that the expectation becomes to take that AP assessment as
Right.
gateway for those solid credits going into college.
Well, thank you. Your presentation was very, very
Thank you.
informative. Dr. Langill has another
Just one
comment or
more.
question.
And I certainly support what you're doing, but as I look at your vision, and I like a lot of it, it's really pedagogy in many ways. So I wondered if, when you get all these 26 teachers together, if a vision that I would love to support as a school board member, budget notwithstanding, because I think sometimes budgets shouldn't rule everything, is let's expand our languages. Let's actually work toward being a school district that offers some world languages. I mean, that, to me, that seems like that would be a key part of the vision, is can't we offer, I don't know, Russian? I mean, even if the budget constraints are tough, reinstitute German. I mean, at least it's a different base language.
true.
Offer Russian or offer something from
I don't know,
Asia.
Mandarin.
I mean, I have to laugh because I was going into my class yesterday at UWM, going up to the classroom building, getting ready to teach, and all the people are on their cell phones. So I'm walking up on the porch of this big classroom building where I am, and there were 3 people on cell phones that I walked past. Not a one of them was speaking English. One of them, I'm sure it was some Arabic language, although I don't know it. One of them, it sounded like Russian or Latvian or something, and then the other one, I think, was Oriental. But as I'm just walking, on the porch, these people, obviously it's a university, but, I mean, when we say world languages, can't we have a vision that we aspire as a district to really strengthen that? Couldn't we add that to our vision?
I couldn't agree with you more. As somebody who's lived on multiple continents
Yeah.
and worked in multiple international schools and traveled to more than 35 countries, I would echo that, because we are, and this is just my own personal opinion, we are behind the times in the United States, and our borders are changing
yes.
rapidly. And there are no borders really anymore with the advent of technology. So I would second that as well.
And I think we're behind in that regard, some of the top districts in our own state. So I would love to see that as part of our vision and our goals to really enrich that. So
Yes.
go for it. You got my vote.
Well, Sharon, thank you for
you.
taking us where we're at now. I think this is a great new direction.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Okay, last but not least, we're going to talk about grading policy. Ryan, you want to take us into that?
Try not to cross over and to take too much of policy's work from them, but there are times where we want to take a look at some things where they are and put some recommendations forward. So really, is simply put on here is to update our policy language with some of the current practice. As we look through some of those, sometimes they're up to date and sometimes they're not. So what we've attempted to do is to create this small flow chart of things that we would review as a CNI team, trying to get those across the desk here to have some conversation. Eventually, tonight is just a discussion item. Information item. But then eventually, based off of the discussion or some of the information, take that then to policy, have a discussion there, and then eventually maybe try to time that with the board. So we always see this as a 2 or 3 month process as we go, and want to do this regularly just to make sure that it does meet the needs. So you'll see what's crossed off and you'll see what's added, and Jody is here for conversation or questions.
Yep.
Mr. Baumgart?
All this educalese or whatever it is, what's the SU program? Or SU grade?
Satisfactory/unsatisfactory.
I kind of figured that, let's say so.
Yeah, I see we did on line 14, but we did not on there, so we'll make that change before policy. Good
Where
suggestion.
did you see it on 14?
If you look under Roman numeral 4 scholarships,
Oh,
line 14.
yeah.
We
Page
did
3.
designate it. I'm not
Okay.
sure how that was left out, so thank you, Bill.
Jody, it's almost the end of the school year and time for final exams. Are the teachers going to be using the new grading policy no, not yet. That'll
Right,
take
that'll be
effect next school year.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's good. It'll give them some time then to have some professional development if necessary. Ellen?
Hi, I know that this isn't coming forward for approval, so I'm fine with that, but and I don't mean to challenge you here, but I was wrestling with this today, which I guess shows that I didn't have a real challenging day myself. But under grading, do we use which there as a collective, singular? In other words, could you research that or get your English
I would
aces
say
to research
that.
that? Because
I would
the
put
way
that
I
there.
read it, it should say which develops, helps, provides, includes. And I
Or
just am
that.
saying, I wouldn't tell you I'm right on that, but could you just check that? Because
Sure.
it seems to me it reads really awkwardly.
Sure, absolutely.
And I'm not sure how we're using which. So,
Ellen, how about replacing that with that?
Yeah.
well, that's the same difference, because if it's a collective plural, then develop, help, provide, and include are good.
Teachers is the,
If it's a collective singular, then you have to do develops, helps,
Right.
provides, includes.
Right, grammatically.
So I'm just asking,
No
could you
que-
check it out?
Absolutely, no question
And
before
I'm
we
sure
bring it to
English
policy.
aces will tell you which way to go. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add? No, okay. Well, Jody, thank you for hanging around here,
Thank you, Jody.
Right, Ryan's bringing me home, so it's fine.
Grammar lesson.
and thank you for all the hard work that you have done. You
Yeah.
know, the board
Yeah.
really appreciates this.
No
Thank you.
problem. Thanks.
Okay, believe it or not, it looks like we've come to the end of our agenda. And thank you all for your participation, and our next CNI meeting will be Tuesday, June 2nd, 2015, 6 o'clock, Lynn Home Boardroom. Meeting adjourned.